I was in the invasion of Iraq in March 2003. There are people here who went to Iraq 10 years later. There's people here who went to Afghanistan 15 years after that. There is Vietnam veterans who went to Vietnam 40 years before me. Every time the United States wages war, there are hundreds, there are thousands who wake up, who turn against it. And our job now, in this moment, is to show all of the soldiers and Marines and airmen and sailors who are tuned into social media, who are tuned into the news, who are looking for answers, who are looking for guidance, who are looking for what to do, that not only do they have the right, but they have the moral obligation to refuse to take part in any military action against Iran.
Yeah!
They don't just have the right, they don't just have the obligation, but they have a community of masses of people who will support them in that decision and wherever it takes them. We do that by telling the truth, by showing our opposition and showing our support to them as they refuse to take this war, to fight this war, just like we refuse to accept it as our government is charging through it. Why does Netanyahu want to destroy Iran? For one main reason. Because Israel wants to commit a genocide of the Palestinian people and expand its settler colony farther past its borders. They want to destroy any country who supports any resistance to that in whatever capacity. Why does Trump want to destroy Iran? Because he represents an aggressive wing of the ruling class of America. The entire ruling class wants hegemony, wants complete control over the world, and in particular control over parts of the world with natural resources to be exploited and pillaged. Trump, some people say he was a peace president. His first term and his second term, he not only spoke openly about his desire to destroy Iran, but appointed all of the neocons that he pretended to hate when he ran for office in 2016, specifically to Iran policy. And the one barrier to his Iran policy, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in his first term, he immediately replaced the chairman of the Joint Chiefs this time and replaced him with an Iran hawk, who said he would undoubtedly support Trump in his move to destroy Iranians' so-called nuclear weapons program. Trump is a hawk, he is surrounded by hawks, but he represents something that this entire system wants, which is the destruction of Iran. Different reasons in Israel, but the same goal. Now, what did Netanyahu and Trump want with this military assault on Iran? This dramatic assault that was carried out with airstrikes, with drones, with car bombs, with assassinations that took out the entirety of Iran's military leadership and almost the entirety of their scientific leadership. What did they want with that attack? Did they want to prevent Iran from getting a nuke?
No.
They don't care about Iran getting a nuke. If they cared about Iran getting a nuke, they would have continued the agreement that when Trump came into office the first time. These strikes had nothing to do with stopping Iran from getting a nuke. The one thing that Netanyahu and Trump wanted with these strikes, these spectacular strikes, was they wanted Iran to have no choice but to have to launch a strong response on Israel. Meaning what they wanted with that attack was for civilians in Tel Aviv to come up under relentless Iranian bombs. So they could say, we are defending ourselves against Iranian aggression. And whether or not you buy into the lie that Iran was about to have nukes, they want the story now to be civilians are in bomb shelters, we're running out of missiles to defend ourselves, we're running out of defensive capabilities, and the only way that we can save the Israeli civilians of Tel Aviv is if the United States military comes in to protect civilians, to protect Israel's right to exist. That is the narrative they wanted with that attack from the very beginning. Now, right now, it feels a lot like it did in 2003, where U.S. involvement in the war seems almost inevitable. And I often hear people point out that the mass protests in 2003, when that war seemed imminent, did not succeed in stopping that war from taking place. I remind people that at that time, the majority of the so-called international community, the majority of Congress, and the majority of the American people supported the invasion of Iraq. And the entire world and the entire country went through the experience of what happened when we listen to rich people with connections to other rich people who tell us lies to get us into a war that's clearly about resources and power and control. And so while we didn't stop that war with those protests, there is an entire new generation of people, an entirely new generation of thought that is not falling for the same lies. And you know what? In 2013, it seemed inevitable that the United States was going to enter into a war with Syria after Syria crossed the so-called red line put in place by the Obama administration. It was about to happen. It was days away from happening. But the people came out to the streets, they mobilized, they created pressure points, they made it clear that they would not accept the lies and they would not accept the war, and the government had to back away from that plan to start bombing Syria. In 2020, it seemed inevitable that we were going to go to Iran then. When Donald Trump said, if Iran attacks any U.S. military base, we will immediately destroy over 51 important sites in Iran. And Iran attacked a U.S. base, and what happened? The people came out to the streets, the people mobilized, they said they would not accept the lies, they would not accept another war, and the government had to back away once again from that seemingly inevitable war. And so right now, as we feel that we are on a precipice against people who are so powerful, unstoppable, invincible, they are weak, they are vulnerable, and they are not invincible. Trump seemed on top of the world when he swept the election in 2025 with his mandate, with his overwhelming support, with getting way more voters than he got in any other election. He seemed unstoppable. But already in the past month, we've seen that start to crumble as the reality of his agenda, his paramilitary fascist agenda sweeping up our neighbors, has led to uprisings, has led to resistance, has led to a decline in his popularity. All of that has started crumbling. And this new war, which is seeing resistance from all sectors of society, even within his own base, is creating another pressure point of crisis for Trump. And if we can continue to build that, and coming out into the streets and exposing the lie that we can not only stop the war in Iran, we can make this be the downfall of Donald Trump to stop the ICE raids, stop the genocide in Gaza, stop the war in Iran, and create a better world for our people. Thank you. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East.
No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East.